I sat tucked behind a decorative column at my sister's wedding, deliberately placed where no one would have to look at me. Everyone acted like I wasn't part of the family. Then a man I'd never met took the empty chair beside me and whispered, "Just play along. Pretend you're with me." When he rose moments later to speak, the entire crowd turned, and I saw my sister's smile falter. But that's skipping too far ahead. To understand what really happened, I need to start from the beginning. It began 3 months earlier, when a cream-colored envelope arrived in my Denver mailbox on a Tuesday morning in April. At the time, I was working full-time as a pastry chef at a small downtown bakery. My apartment was tiny but warm and fragrant, always perfumed with vanilla and cinnamon from my late-night experiments. That day, I'd been awake since 4 a.m., perfecting honey lavender croissants. So by the time I returned home in the afternoon, I almost overlooked the elegant envelope nestled among bills and coupons. Victoria was getting married, my older sister, the family's pride and joy, our mother's flawless creation. The invitation was everything I expected: formal, embossed, traditional to the core. Her fiancé's name, Gregory, was new to me. She'd never mentioned him during our rare, stilted phone calls. I told myself I should be happy for her. That's what sisters do. But as I held the heavy cardstock, my mind drifted to the last holiday dinner we'd shared 6 months before. Our mother had hosted Thanksgiving that year. I'd spent 2 days crafting a pumpkin cheesecake layered over a ginger snap crust, proud of how perfect it looked. Victoria had shown up with a pie from the grocery store. "Elizabeth, you really shouldn't have gone to such lengths," my mother said, placing my dessert at the far edge of the buffet. "Victoria's pie is just lovely." So classic. There was always the script. Victoria could do nothing and still be praised. I could do everything and be told it was too much. Inside the invitation was a small handwritten note in Victoria's graceful cursive, "Elizabeth, I know we haven't been close, but it would mean so much to have you there. You're my only sister." That evening I called her. She picked up on the fourth ring, sounding distracted. I congratulated her, and she breezily said she was relieved the invitation hadn't been lost. "Can you make it?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "Tell me about Gregory." There was a brief silence. Then, "We met at a pharmaceutical conference. He's a regional director at Bennett Health Solutions. Very successful, very established. Mother absolutely adores him." Naturally she did. I wondered if Victoria adored him too, or if she just liked how he looked on paper. She thanked me, mentioned another meeting with the wedding planner, and hung up before I could reply. That hollow feeling returned, not sadness or anger, but the steady ache of being second best. The months before the wedding slipped past in a haze of work and reluctant anticipation. I bought a soft blue dress, elegant but understated, and arranged time off despite the bakery's busy season. I noticed Victoria never asked me to be a bridesmaid. Her social media revealed a lineup of 5: college friends, coworkers, even our cousin Jessica. Everyone but me. "You understand," she said when I finally asked. "They're the people I see most often." I understood perfectly. The ceremony was set for late June at a luxury mountain resort outside Denver. I drove there alone, my gown hanging in the back seat, a silver-wrapped gift beside me, handmade ceramic bowls I'd picked out with care. The venue was breathtaking. Manicured lawns, a lake glinting in the sunlight, rows of white chairs framed by overflowing flowers. My mother had clearly spared no expense to showcase her favorite daughter. I arrived early hoping to see Victoria, maybe offer help. Her suite overflowed with bridesmaids in matching robes, laughing and posing for photos. I knocked softly. She glanced up from her makeup chair, gave a brief smile. "Elizabeth, you're early." I asked if she needed anything. "Everything's handled," she said quickly. "Go find your seat." A few bridesmaids whispered behind their champagne flutes as I turned away, cheeks burning. I shouldn't have come early. Outside, staff were perfecting the already flawless setup. I searched for my name among the rows. It wasn't in the front or even the middle. It was on the last chair of the last row, half blocked by a pillar. My view of the altar would be almost non-existent. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. Victoria had put me exactly where she thought I belonged, unseen. I could have left, but I didn't. Pride, or maybe defiance, rooted me to that seat. Guests began arriving in elegant waves. From my hidden corner, I watched relatives greet one another like a family I barely recognized. When our mother arrived, radiant in her champagne gown, she didn't glance back once. I was invisible. At 5 o'clock, the music began. Bridesmaids in sage green, groomsmen in navy, perfect symmetry everywhere. Victoria appeared on our father's arm, her lace gown trailing like a cloud. Even from my poor angle, she was stunning. I craned my neck, catching glimpses of vows I couldn't hear. That's when I noticed the man 2 seats away, also half hidden behind the pillar. He looked to be in his early 30s, with neatly styled dark hair and a suit that fit him too well to be off the rack. His expression mirrored my own discomfort. When our eyes met, he gave me a sympathetic smile. I returned it weakly and tried to focus on what little I could see. The ceremony ended amid applause. As the crowd began drifting toward the cocktail hour, the stranger approached. Up close, he was even more striking. Gray eyes, sharp but kind. "Quite the view," he said lightly. "Spectacular," I replied. "Especially the back of that man's head in row 8. He laughed, the sound disarming. "I'm Julian. You must be someone's least favorite relative." "Elizabeth," I said. "The bride's sister, actually." His brows rose. "And they put you back here?" Apparently, I don't match the aesthetic. He studied me for a long moment before saying, "Their loss. Come on, let's face the reception together. I don't need pity." "Not pity," he said. "Strategy. I only know 3 people here, 2 of whom just got married. You'd actually be helping me." Something in his tone made me agree. He offered his arm. I took it. The cocktail hour was held in a pavilion overlooking the gardens. Candles flickered, violins played, servers floated by with trays of exquisite hors d'oeuvres. Julian stayed close as we moved through the crowd. Curious glances followed us, perhaps wondering who the handsome stranger was and why he'd attached himself to the forgotten sister. We settled near the edge of the room. Julian returned with wine and appetizers. "Tell me about Victoria," he said. I hesitated, then told him the truth. "She's perfect. Or, at least, works very hard to seem that way. Straight A's, great job, picture-perfect life. And you're not?" He teased gently. "I'm the pastry chef who didn't become a doctor, the woman with a tiny apartment and no husband, the disappointment." "Being a pastry chef sounds impressive," he said. "Not everyone can do that." I smiled wryly. "Tell that to my mother, who introduces me as Elizabeth, who works with food." He laughed. "Families," he said. "They're complicated. That's one word for it." He told me about his job in renewable energy, consulting for businesses going green. Important work, though he described it modestly. His passion was unmistakable. We talked easily, the conversation flowing until a server announced dinner. The ballroom was dazzling, the tables arranged in a grand U-shape, with Victoria and Gregory elevated at the center. My seat? Far corner, with strangers, overflow guests. Julian appeared again, frowning at his own placement. "They've scattered the unimportant ones," he murmured. I'd had enough. "I'm her only sister," I snapped, and she put me in the corner like an afterthought. "Then let's fix that," Julian said, slipping both our name cards into his pocket. "Follow my lead. Pretend you're my date." Before I could argue, he led me to a table near the head. His confidence was unnerving and contagious. He greeted the people there effortlessly. They were Gregory's colleagues from Bennett Health Solutions. One woman, Patricia, leaned toward me. "So you're Julian's girlfriend. He's been keeping you secret." Before I could correct her, Julian jumped in. "Elizabeth likes to avoid the spotlight," he said smoothly. "But she couldn't miss this wedding." Patricia smiled. "And how do you know the bride?" "She's my sister," I said. Her face froze for half a second. "Oh, I didn't realize Victoria had a sister." The words stung more than they should have. Dinner arrived in flawless courses. Scallops, salad, beef, or salmon. I barely tasted a bite. Julian's presence grounded me. Every brush of his hand felt deliberate, protective. He included me in every conversation, making sure I wasn't invisible anymore. Speeches followed. Gregory's father praised Victoria's poise. My mother glowed as she reminisced about dress fittings and cake tastings. She never mentioned me. Not once. It was as if I'd been erased. Julian's fingers found mine beneath the table. A quiet reassurance. I squeezed back. Toasts continued, filled with laughter, admiration, perfection. And I sat there, the unseen sister, a silent witness. When dessert arrived, a towering chocolate raspberry cake, I couldn't help noticing its flaws. The ganache too sweet, the texture heavy. Julian caught my expression. Not impressed? He asked. Pretty, but shallow, I murmured. The flavors are fighting each other. Could you do better? He teased, in my sleep. My reply sounded steadier than I felt, but it wasn't a bluff. In every part of life, I might be the family letdown, yet in a kitchen, I understood exactly what I could do. I believe you, Julian said simply. Dessert cleared. The party shifted into dancing. Victoria and Gregory glided through their first dance beneath flawless lighting, while the band played a slow love song. They looked like a spread from a glossy magazine, the ideal pair in their well-curated moment. When my father stepped in for the father-daughter turn, I watched them circle the floor and thought about the nights he used to spin me around our living room before the divorce, before it all unraveled. Did Victoria remember that? Or the family we used to be? Julian rose and held out his hand. Dance with me? You don't have to keep playing the attentive date. I'm fine. I know I don't have to. I want to. Besides, I'm a terrible dancer, and I need someone to step on who won't sue me. I let him guide me out. He wasn't clumsy at all. He moved with easy assurance, keeping a courteous space between us. We found the rhythm, and my shoulders lowered, my breath evened out. Thank you, I murmured. For the company, for sticking with me, for the pretend date rescue. You didn't have to do any of this. Maybe I wanted to. You're interesting, Elizabeth. More interesting than anyone else at this wedding? You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're talented and underappreciated. I know you see through the superficial nonsense that most people accept without question. I know you're hurt, but you're trying not to show it. And that takes strength. His words reached the place I'd been guarding. Heat pricked my eyes, and I blinked fast, refusing to cry here. The music shifted upbeat. More couples poured in, and Julian steered us to the edge. I need some air, I admitted. Let's go outside. We slipped onto a terrace above the gardens. The night felt cool and clean after the packed ballroom. Strings of lights shimmered in the trees, a fairy tale scene at odds with the tangle inside my chest. I shouldn't have come, I said, bracing my elbows on the rail. I knew it would be like this, but I kept hoping it might be different, that Victoria would remember we're sisters, that she'd actually want me here instead of ticking me off a list. Julian stood close enough that our shoulders touched. Family can be the most complicated relationship we have. We're bound to them by blood, but that doesn't guarantee love or respect, or even basic consideration, and you sound like you've lived it. My father and I haven't spoken in 3 years. He had very specific plans for my life, and when I chose a different path, he made it clear I was no longer the son he wanted. So, yes, I understand what it feels like to be the disappointment. I studied his face and saw new depth there. I'm sorry. That must have been painful. It was. It is. But I learned something important from it. The people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are still people, with their own limitations and prejudices and failures. Sometimes the family we choose matters more than the family we're born into. Is that what tonight is? You choosing to be kind to a stranger? Maybe it started that way, but you're not a stranger anymore, Elizabeth. And this isn't just kindness. Something in his voice sped up my heartbeat. The doors opened. Laughing guests spilled onto the terrace. The moment dissolved. We should probably go back inside. I think they're about to cut the cake. The cake ritual was exactly as scripted. More photos, more toasts, more curated perfection. Victoria offered Gregory a delicate bite. He mirrored her with equal restraint. No playful smears, no chaos. Control, as always. While servers handed out slices, I spotted my mother weaving through conversations, radiant inside the orbit of her triumphant daughter. When her eyes found me, surprise gave way to censure. She approached with measured grace, smile tightening. Elizabeth, I didn't expect to see you sitting here. This table was reserved for Gregory's business associates. There was a seating mix-up. Julian said smoothly before I could respond. I'm Julian, one of Gregory's renewable energy consultants. Elizabeth and I are here together. My mother's gaze swept him. The suit, the posture, and I could almost see her recalculation. I see. Well, it's lovely to meet you, Julian. I'm Eleanor, Victoria's mother. She stressed the title like a rank. I wasn't aware Elizabeth was seeing anyone. We've been keeping things quiet, Julian replied, his hand closing over mine. Elizabeth is quite private about her personal life. Yes, she is. Eleanor's smile never reached her eyes. Elizabeth, dear, I hope you're enjoying the wedding. Victoria worked so hard to make everything perfect. It's beautiful, I said, easing the words out. She must be very happy. She is. Gregory is exactly the kind of man I always hoped she'd marry. Successful, established, from a good family. It's everything a mother could want for her daughter. The comparison hung there, obvious and sharp. Julian's grip on my hand firmed, a quiet shield. Elizabeth was just telling me about her work as a pastry chef. It sounds incredibly demanding. Not everyone has the talent or discipline to succeed in that field. Annoyance flickered in her expression at the neat parry. Yes, well, we all have our different paths. I should get back to the other guests. Do try to enjoy yourself, Elizabeth. She drifted away, trailing perfume and judgment. That was unpleasant, Julian said once she was gone. That was my mother being gentle. You should see the version where she's making a point. I'm starting to understand why you were sitting behind that pillar. The night wore on. Music, dancing, endless drinks. Victoria and Gregory circulated with efficient charm, spending longer with the high-value guests, keeping the pecking order intact. They reached us eventually. Gregory's smile was practiced. Up close, he was classically handsome in a way that photographed well but felt hollow. His handshake with Julian was brisk when they were introduced. Victoria's gaze landed on me and flickered. Shock, then discomfort, as if she'd forgotten I existed. Elizabeth, you look lovely, she said in that careful tone reserved for distant acquaintances. Thank you. The wedding is beautiful, Victoria. Congratulations. I'm so glad you could make it. And I see you've met some of Gregory's colleagues. She looked to Julian, curious. I don't believe we've been introduced. Julian, I work with Gregory on sustainability initiatives for Bennett Health Solutions, and I have the pleasure of being Elizabeth's date this evening. Her eyes widened a fraction. Oh, I didn't realize you were seeing anyone, Elizabeth. How wonderful. The faint stress on wonderful said it all. Shock packaged as praise, as if a man like Julian choosing me didn't compute. We've been dating for a few months, Julian continued, sliding his arm around my waist. Easy and possessive. Elizabeth is remarkable. I count myself lucky she tolerates my workaholic tendencies. How nice, Victoria said, her smile going taut. Well, we should continue making our rounds. So many people to thank. But let's catch up properly soon, Elizabeth. I feel like we haven't really talked in ages. They moved on. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. That felt unreal. She seemed startled by your happiness. Victoria isn't used to me having anything she values, including a date who impresses the in-laws. So you think I'm handsome? Julian's eyes sparkled. Don't get carried away. Objectively attractive. Not a personal opinion. Of course, entirely objective. Near 10 p.m., the coordinator announced the couple's exit. Guests should gather outside with sparklers. I considered skipping it, but Julian coaxed me along. You came this far. Might as well see it through. We lined the path, sparklers hissing. Victoria and Gregory ran between twin rows of light, laughing, then climbed into a luxury car bound for their honeymoon suite on site. As the taillights faded, a strange finality settled in. It was done. Victoria had the ideal day, the ideal marriage, the ideal life. And I had stood at the edges, exactly where she wanted me. People drifted off toward rooms or parking. Julian and I lingered on the steps, reluctant to call it a night. Can I walk you to your car? He asked. I'm actually staying at the resort tonight, room 314. I figured it would be easier than driving back to Denver this late. I hesitated, then asked, what about you? Same, room 209. My colleague had already booked the room before he got sick, so it seemed wasteful not to use it. We strolled through the lit gardens toward the main building. The temperature had dropped, and I shivered in my thin dress. Julian shrugged off his jacket and settled it over my shoulders with such old-school gallantry I almost laughed. You don't have to do that. I'm fine. Humor me. I was raised with old-fashioned manners, and my mother would haunt me if I let you freeze. The fabric was warm, scented with expensive cologne, and something distinctly him. I drew it close, grateful for the heat and the excuse to keep a part of him near me. Thank you, I said, For all of it. You turned what could have been miserable into something almost pleasant. Just almost? I'll need to refine my faux date technique. Okay, better than almost. Unexpectedly good in places. That's more like it. He stopped and faced me. Elizabeth, I know tonight started as two outcasts forming a tactical alliance, but for me, it became more than that. You're interesting, funny, gifted, and far too good for anyone who refuses to see your value. His words wrapped around something fragile I'd guarded for years. Julian, I know this is fast and the timing is odd, but I'd like to see you again, after tonight, away from wedding theatrics and seating charts. I wanted to say yes right away. Everything in me said this was real, but doubt, in my mother's voice, whispered that men like him don't choose women like me, that this was a one-night kindness. You don't have to say that just because you felt sorry for me tonight. I'm not. I'm saying it because I spent the evening with someone I genuinely enjoyed, and I want more evenings like that. Because you make me laugh and think and feel less alone in crowded rooms. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth knowing better. He paused, open and a little raw. But if you're not interested, I understand. I don't want to push. I am interested, I blurted before I could overthink it. I just don't want to build hopes around something that vanishes by morning. Then let's make sure it doesn't. Have breakfast with me tomorrow. The resort's restaurant is decent, and we can talk without tuxedos and wedding pressure. What do you say? Breakfast sounds good. His smile turned relieved and unguarded. 9 o'clock? I'll meet you in the lobby. We reached the entrance. The lobby was quiet. Most guests had already turned in. This was the edge of the night, the point where we'd separate and I'd be alone with the weight of it all. Julian looked just as unwilling to end it. He stayed close, fingers still laced with mine, studying my face as though committing it to memory. Good night, Elizabeth. I'm glad I crashed your sister's wedding. I'm glad you did too. Good night, Julian. He leaned in slowly, enough time for me to refuse. I didn't. The kiss was gentle and questioning and exactly right. When he drew back, his thumb brushed my cheek. Then he turned toward the elevators, and I stood there in the lobby with his jacket on my shoulders, fingertips pressed to my lips, wondering what had just shifted. I drifted to my room still dazed. Neutral decor, a garden view, crisp sheets. I hung his jacket in the closet, changed, fell onto the bed. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Thanks for coming tonight. It meant a lot to have you there. I stared at it. It meant a lot. Did it? From the last row seat to the surprise at seeing me near the head table. From never mentioning me to her colleagues. Did it mean anything at all? I typed and erased and finally sent, "Congratulations again. The wedding was beautiful." She replied immediately, "We should definitely get together when I'm back from the honeymoon. I want to hear all about your new boyfriend. He seems very successful." Of course, that was her takeaway. Not my presence, not our near silence, but that I'd appeared with someone impressive. That alone made me visible. I let the screen go dark and stared at the ceiling, sorting through the whipsaw of the night. I had expected to feel like an outsider, and I did. But I also met Julian, felt seen for hours, and now there was breakfast to anticipate. Sleep took its time. Images looped, Victoria's perfect smile, my mother's barbs, Julian's hand closing around mine, sparklers igniting the air. Tomorrow I'd head back to Denver. The apartment, the bakery, the routine. Still, something had moved inside me, a clearer sense of my standing in my family, and of my own value. Sunlight woke me around 8. For a breath I didn't know where I was, then the previous day crashed back. A knot of mixed feelings. I showered, dressed in casual clothes meant to look effortless, and laughed at the irony of worrying about appearances after a night of invisibility. Julian was waiting at 9 on the dot, jeans and a navy sweater setting off those gray eyes. His smile was easy and my stomach fluttered. "Good morning. You look beautiful. You look pretty good yourself." Is that my line, though? Aren't men supposed to be the ones getting compliments on their appearance? I believe in equal opportunity compliments. Come on, I heard they make excellent waffles here. The dining room was lively but not loud. We found a window table with a lake view. Morning light glittered on the water, as calm as the prior day had been chaotic. Over coffee and waffles, conversation flowed. He told me about a stubborn client, a manufacturing firm digging in its heels. I told him about the bakery, my brilliant, moody boss, and the pure joy of creating something beautiful that people can taste. You light up when you talk about baking, Julian said, cutting into his waffle. It's obvious you love what you do. I do. It's the one area of my life where I feel completely confident. No second guessing. No wondering if I'm good enough. I know I'm good at what I do. Then why do you let your family make you feel otherwise? His tone stayed gentle even as the question landed hard. I set down my fork. Because they're my family. Because some part of me still reaches for approval I will never receive. Not the kind Victoria gets. What if you stopped wanting their approval? What if you decided your opinion of yourself mattered more than theirs? That's hard to undo when you've spent years being measured against someone else and always coming up short. He covered my hand with his. For what it's worth, I think you're extraordinary. And I don't say that lightly. We finished and wandered outside. Neither of us ready to split. June had that bright, promise-filled feel without the heavy heat. Guest-loaded cars heading back to their lives. I should get on the road soon, I said. I work tomorrow, and I need to prep this afternoon. Before you go, can I ask you something? His expression sharpened. Last night, watching how your family treated you, seeing how they've made you feel small and unimportant, it made me angry. Not just sympathetic, but genuinely angry on your behalf. That's kind of you, but I'm not finished. What if there was a way to change the narrative? To make them see you differently, to give you back some of the power they've been taking from you all these years. I searched his face. What do you mean? I mean, what if we continued this? Not fake dating, but real dating. What if we spent time together, built something genuine, and along the way showed your family that you're not the disappointment they painted you as? Julian, I'm not going to use you to make my family jealous. That's not fair to you. You wouldn't be using me, I'm offering. Because I want to see you again regardless. But I also want to help you if I can. Think about it. Your sister just married a pharmaceutical executive, right? Well, I happen to be someone her new husband's company needs. Someone who could make things very interesting for them. A chill ran through me that wasn't from the breeze. What are you saying exactly? His features shifted, more calculating than before. I'm saying that Gregory's company, Bennett Health Solutions, has been in talks with my firm about a major sustainability overhaul. It's a multi-million-dollar project that would significantly improve their environmental impact and their public image. I'm one of the lead consultants on the proposal. My answer sounded surer than I felt, yet it was honest. In most things, I might be the family letdown. But in a professional kitchen, I understood my value. I believe you, Julian said simply. Once plates were cleared, the party shifted to the dance floor. Victoria and Gregory drifted through their first dance beneath flawless lighting while the band played a soft ballad. They looked like a staged photo, the ideal couple in their curated moment. When my father stepped in for the traditional dance, I watched them circle the room and remembered how he used to twirl me around our living room when I was small, before the divorce, before the rest unraveled. I wondered if Victoria remembered that version of us. Julian rose and offered his hand. Dance with me? You don't have to keep playing the attentive date. I'm fine. I know I don't have to. I want to. Besides, I'm a terrible dancer, and I need someone to step on who won't sue me. I let him lead me out. He wasn't clumsy at all. He moved with easy assurance, staying respectfully distant. As we swayed, I felt my shoulders loosen and my breath even out. Thank you, I said under the music, for showing up, for sticking by me, for the pretend date routine. You didn't have to do any of this. Maybe I wanted to. You're interesting, Elizabeth. More interesting than anyone else at this wedding. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're talented and underappreciated. I know you see through the superficial nonsense that most people accept without question. I know you're hurt, but you're trying not to show it, and that takes strength. His words struck the place I'd been guarding all night. My eyes heated, but I blinked hard. I refused to cry here. The song shifted to something lively. Couples poured in, and he steered us toward the edge. I need some air, I admitted. Let's go outside. We slipped onto a terrace above the gardens. Cool air washed over us after the crush inside. Strings of lights glittered in the trees. a storybook scene that clashed with the tangle in my chest. I shouldn't have come, I said, leaning on the railing. I knew it would play out like this. Still, I'd hoped for something else, that Victoria would remember we're sisters, that she would truly want me here instead of checking a box. Julian stood close, our shoulders touching. Family can be the most complicated relationship we have. We're bound to them by blood, but that doesn't guarantee love or respect, or even basic consideration. You sound like you've lived that. My father and I haven't spoken in 3 years. He had very specific plans for my life, and when I chose a different path, he made it clear I was no longer the son he wanted. So yes, I understand what it feels like to be the disappointment. I looked at him and saw new layers there. I'm sorry. That must have been painful. It is. But I learned something important from it. The people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are still people, with their own limitations and prejudices and failures. Sometimes, the family we choose matters more than the family we're born into. Is that what tonight is? You choosing to be kind to a stranger? Maybe it started that way. But you're not a stranger anymore, Elizabeth, and this isn't just kindness. Something in his voice sped my pulse. Then the doors opened, a laughing group spilled out, and the moment snapped. We should probably go back inside. I think they're about to cut the cake. The cake ritual unfolded exactly on script. More photos, more toasts, perfect choreography. Victoria lifted a delicate bite to Gregory. He returned it just as neatly. No smashed icing, nothing messy. Control, as always. While servers distributed slices, I watched my mother glide through conversations, radiant in the halo of her daughter's triumph. When her eyes landed on me, surprise shifted to disapproval. She advanced with measured steps, her smile tightening. Elizabeth, I didn't expect to see you sitting here. This table was reserved for Gregory's business associates. There was a seating mix-up, Julian said smoothly before I could answer. I'm Julian, one of Gregory's renewable energy consultants. Elizabeth and I are here together. My mother's gaze ran over his impeccable suit and steady poise, and I could almost see her recalculating. I see. Well, it's lovely to meet you, Julian. I'm Eleanor, Victoria's mother. She put weight on those words, as if to underline rank. I wasn't aware Elizabeth was seeing anyone. We've been keeping things quiet, Julian replied, finding my hand. Elizabeth is quite private about her personal life. Yes, she is. Eleanor's smile stayed cool. Elizabeth, dear, I hope you're enjoying the wedding. Victoria worked so hard to make everything perfect. It's beautiful, I managed. She must be very happy. She is. Gregory is exactly the kind of man I always hoped she'd marry. Successful, established, from a good family. It's everything a mother could want for her daughter. The implication hung there, sharp and obvious. Julian's fingers tightened around mine, a quiet defense. Elizabeth was just telling me about her work as a pastry chef. It sounds incredibly demanding. Not everyone has the talent or discipline to succeed in that field. Irritation flickered across her face at the deflection. Yes, well, we all have our different paths. I should get back to the other guests. Do try to enjoy yourself, Elizabeth. She drifted away, trailing fragrance and judgment. That was unpleasant, Julian said once she was out of earshot. That was my mother, in gentle mode. You should see her when she's making a point. I'm starting to understand why you were sitting behind that pillar. The evening rolled on. Music, dancing, drinks. Victoria and Gregory circulated with practiced ease, staying longer with the high-priority guests, keeping the hierarchy intact. They reached us. Gregory's smile was polished. Up close, his handsome features felt generic. He shook Julian's hand perfunctorily. Victoria's gaze hit me and flickered. Surprise, then discomfort, as if she'd forgotten I existed. Elizabeth, you look lovely, she said with the careful tone reserved for semi-strangers. Thank you. The wedding is beautiful, Victoria. Congratulations. I'm so glad you could make it. And I see you've met some of Gregory's colleagues. Her attention shifted to Julian. I don't believe we've been introduced. Julian, I work with Gregory on sustainability initiatives for Bennett Health Solutions, and I have the pleasure of being Elizabeth's date this evening. Her eyes widened slightly. Oh, I didn't realize you were seeing anyone, Elizabeth. How wonderful. The faint stress on wonderful gave her away. Surprise wrapped as praise. We've been dating for a few months, Julian said, sliding an arm around my waist in a natural, possessive way. Elizabeth is remarkable. I count myself lucky she tolerates my workaholic tendencies. How nice, Victoria answered, smile a touch brittle. Well, we should continue making our rounds. So many people to thank. But let's catch up properly soon, Elizabeth. I feel like we haven't really talked in ages. They moved on. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. That felt surreal. She looked startled to see you happy. Victoria doesn't expect me to have anything she values, including a date who impresses her in-laws. So you think I'm handsome? Julian's eyes glinted. Don't let it go to your head. Strictly objective, not a personal take, of course. Entirely objective. Around 10, the coordinator announced the send-off. Guests were asked to gather with sparklers. I nearly skipped it, but Julian nudged me. You came this far. Might as well see it through. We lined the path, flames hissing. Victoria and Gregory ran between twin rows of light, laughing, then slid into a luxury car headed to their on-site suite. As the taillights faded, a finality settled over me. It was done. Victoria got the ideal day, the ideal marriage, the ideal life. And I had watched from the margins, exactly where she preferred me. People trickled toward rooms or the lot. We lingered on the steps, both reluctant to close the night. Can I walk you to your car? He asked. I'm actually staying at the resort tonight. Room 314. I figured it would be easier than driving back to Denver this late. I hesitated, then asked, what about you? Same. Room 209. My colleague had already booked the room before he got sick, so it seemed wasteful not to use it. We wandered along the lit garden path to the main building. The temperature had dipped. I shivered in my thin dress. He shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders with such old-world courtesy I almost laughed. You don't have to do that. I'm fine. Humor me. I was raised with old-fashioned manners, and my mother would haunt me if I let you freeze. The fabric was warm, scented with expensive cologne and something distinctly him. I pulled it closer, grateful for the heat and for the excuse to keep a piece of him near. Thank you, I said, for all of it. You turned what could have been miserable into something almost pleasant. Only almost? I'll need to refine my faux date game. Fine, better than almost. Surprisingly good, at points. That's more like it. He stopped and faced me. Elizabeth, I know this started as a tactic between two outcasts, but for me, it became more. You're funny, gifted, genuinely compelling, and far too good for people who refuse to see it. His words wrapped around something fragile I'd guarded for years. Julian, I know it's sudden and the timing is odd, but I'd like to see you again, after tonight. Away from wedding theatrics and seating charts, I wanted to say yes immediately. Everything told me it was real, but doubt, wearing my mother's voice, whispered that men like him don't choose women like me, that this was a one-night kindness. You don't have to say that just because you felt sorry for me tonight. I'm not. I'm saying it because I spent the evening with someone I genuinely enjoyed, and I want more evenings like that. Because you make me laugh and think and feel less alone in crowded rooms. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth knowing better. He paused, open and vulnerable. But if you're not interested, I understand. I don't want to push. I am interested, I said, before overthinking could stop me. I just don't want to pin hopes on something that disappears by morning. Then let's make sure it doesn't. Have breakfast with me tomorrow. The resort has a decent restaurant, and we can talk without tuxedos and wedding stress. What do you say? Breakfast sounds good. His smile eased, relieved. 9 o'clock? I'll meet you in the lobby. We reached the entrance. The lobby was hushed. Most guests had gone upstairs. This was the point where we'd part and I'd be alone with the weight of the night. Julian seemed equally reluctant. He stayed close, fingers still threaded with mine, studying my face like he was memorizing it. Good night, Elizabeth. I'm glad I crashed your sister's wedding. I'm glad you did too. Good night, Julian. He leaned in slowly, giving me the chance to pull back. I didn't. The kiss was gentle, exploratory, exactly right. When he drew away, his thumb skimmed my cheek. Then he headed for the elevators, and I stood there in his jacket, fingers on my lips, wondering what had shifted. In my room, still dazed, I hung his jacket carefully in the closet, changed, and collapsed on the bed. The decor was calm, with a garden view. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Thanks for coming tonight. It meant a lot to have you there. I stared at the words. It meant a lot. Did it? From sticking me behind a pillar to not mentioning me to colleagues, to looking startled when she saw me seated near the head table, did any of it mean anything? I typed and erased, then sent, "Congratulations again. The wedding was beautiful." She replied at once, "We should definitely get together when I'm back from the honeymoon. I want to hear all about your new boyfriend. He seems very successful." Of course, that was where her attention landed. Not that I showed up, not that we barely spoke, but that I arrived with someone impressive. That alone made me visible. I put the phone aside and stared at the ceiling, trying to process the whiplash. I had expected to be the outsider, and I was, but I'd also met Julian, felt seen for hours, and now I had breakfast ahead. Sleep came slowly as the night replayed. Victoria's polished smile, my mother's barbs, Julian's hand finding mine, sparklers bright against the dark. In the morning, I'd head back to Denver. My apartment, the bakery, the routine. But something inside had shifted, a clearer sense of where I stood with my family, and of my own worth. Sunlight woke me around 8. For a second, I didn't recognize the room. Then yesterday, flooded in with its tangle of feelings. I showered and dressed in casual clothes, meant to look effortless, and had to laugh at the irony of worrying about appearances after a night of invisibility. At 9 sharp, Julian was waiting in the lobby in jeans and a navy sweater that sharpened his gray eyes. His smile was unguarded. My stomach fluttered. "Good morning. You look beautiful. You look pretty good yourself." Is that my line, though? Aren't men supposed to be the ones getting compliments on their appearance? I believe in equal opportunity compliments. "Come on, I heard they make excellent waffles here." The restaurant was lively but calm. We grabbed a window table overlooking the lake. Morning light danced on the water, the opposite of the previous day's chaos. Over breakfast, conversation flowed easily. He described a stubborn client, a manufacturer resisting change. I talked about the bakery, my brilliant but temperamental boss, and the joy of making something beautiful that people can taste. "You light up when you talk about baking," Julian said, cutting his waffle. "It's obvious you love what you do." I do. It's the one area of my life where I feel completely confident. No second guessing. No wondering if I'm good enough. I know I'm good at what I do. Then why do you let your family make you feel otherwise? The question was firm but kind. I set my fork down. Because they're my family. Because part of me still reaches for approval I know I'll never get. Not the kind Victoria receives. What if you stopped wanting their approval? What if you decided your opinion of yourself mattered more than theirs? Hard to unlearn after years of being measured against someone else and coming up short. He covered my hand with his. "For what it's worth, I think you're extraordinary." And I don't say that lightly. We finished and stepped outside, neither eager to part. June felt bright and promising without the heavy heat. Guests loaded luggage and left for home. "I should probably get going," I said. "I work tomorrow and need to prep this afternoon. Before you go, can I ask you something?" His expression sharpened. "Last night, watching how your family treated you, seeing how they made you feel small and unimportant, it made me angry. Not just sympathetic, but genuinely angry on your behalf. That's kind of you, but I'm not finished. What if there was a way to change the narrative, to make them see you differently, to give you back some of the power they've been taking from you all these years?" I searched his face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we continued this? Not fake dating, but real dating. What if we spent time together, built something genuine, and along the way showed your family that you're not the disappointment they painted you as?" "Julian, I'm not going to use you to make my family jealous. That's not fair to you. You wouldn't be using me. I'm offering. Because I want to see you again regardless, but I also want to help you if I can. Think about it. Your sister just married a pharmaceutical executive, right? Well, I happen to be someone her new husband's company needs. Someone who could make things very interesting for them." A chill moved through me that wasn't from the weather. "What are you saying exactly?" His expression shifted, more calculating than before. "I'm saying that Gregory's company, Bennett Health Solutions, has been in talks with my firm about a major sustainability overhaul. It's a multi-million-dollar project that would significantly improve their environmental impact and their public image. I'm one of the lead consultants on the proposal." "And you'd use that as leverage somehow?" "Not leverage, exactly. just an opportunity to remind them that people they overlook might be more important than they realize. Your family, especially Victoria, seems very invested in status and success. What if you suddenly had access to that world through me? What if they had to see you differently? I should have said no. I should have thanked him for the thought, but explained that revenge wasn't my style, that I was above such pettiness. But standing there in the morning light, remembering every slight and dismissal from the night before, something darker whispered that maybe I deserved a little vindication. This feels manipulative, I said slowly. Is it more manipulative than seating you behind a pillar at your own sister's wedding? Than never mentioning you have a sister to colleagues she worked with on planning? Than your mother pretending you don't exist in her speeches? Julian's voice was passionate now. Sometimes the people who hurt us need to be shown consequences. Not cruelty, just consequences. What would this actually look like? I'm not going to sabotage anyone's business or career. I'm not that person. Nothing like that. I'm talking about visibility, about making sure you're present and acknowledged at future family events, about your sister and mother realizing that dismissing you means potentially damaging relationships that matter to Gregory's career, about you finally getting the respect you deserve, even if it starts from a place of obligation rather than genuine affection. I knew the logic was twisted, yet it called to me. After so many years of being sidelined, after so many gatherings where I was lesser, the idea that Victoria would be forced to see me, include me, treat me as if I mattered was intoxicating. I need to think about this, I said at last. Of course, take all the time you need. But Elizabeth, whether you agree to any of this or not, I meant what I said about wanting to see you again. That part is real. No manipulation involved. We swapped numbers before we parted. He kissed me goodbye, gentle again, and my heart stumbled. Then I drove back to Denver. My thoughts knotted. The following week blurred. Work and uncertainty. Julian texted every day, light check-ins that turned into longer exchanges. We talked about anything and everything. Books, places on our wish lists, childhood moments that shaped us. He never pressed about his idea. No mention of Victoria, revenge, any of it. He just treated me like someone worth knowing. On Friday, he called. I have a business dinner next Thursday in Denver. A potential client I'm trying to woo. Would you want to join me? Fair warning. It might be boring corporate talk, but I'd love your company. Are you sure? I don't know anything about renewable energy consulting. That's exactly why I want you there. You'll keep me honest. Keep the conversation from disappearing completely into jargon. Plus, the restaurant is supposed to have an incredible pastry chef. I thought you might enjoy critiquing their desserts. I laughed despite myself. You're bribing me with professional reconnaissance? Is it working? Yes. What's the dress code? Thursday arrived sooner than I expected. I left early to change into an understated black dress. Julian picked me up at 7. Unfairly handsome in a dark suit. The restaurant was the kind with no prices on the menu and a sommelier guarding the wine list. His client was already seated. Patricia, whom I recognized from the wedding. She'd sat at our table, one of Gregory's colleagues at Bennett Health Solutions. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw me. Elizabeth, what a lovely surprise. I didn't realize you and Julian were still together. Still together and going strong, Julian said smoothly, his hand warm at my back. Elizabeth has been patient with my crazy work schedule. We settled in. I listened as they dug into the sustainability proposal, but Patricia kept drawing me in, asking about my work in the bakery. That sounds fascinating. I have such respect for people who work with their hands, who create tangible things. My job is all spreadsheets and conference calls. Sometimes I miss making something real. Dessert arrived, a deconstructed lemon tart with lavender cream, and I couldn't help offering a professional take. The technique is excellent, but the components are competing rather than harmonizing. The lavender is too strong, overwhelming the lemon instead of supporting it. Patricia leaned forward. Could you fix it? If you were making this, what would you change? I talked through balance, how each note should shine without overpowering the rest. Julian watched me with open pride, while Patricia asked thoughtful follow-ups. You know, we're planning a major corporate event in August, Patricia said as coffee arrived, a celebration for the successful completion of our sustainability project. Assuming Julian's team delivers everything they promised, of course. She smiled his way. We haven't settled on a caterer yet. Would your bakery be interested in handling the desserts? I blinked. We're a small operation. I'm not sure we can handle a crowd that size. Let me rephrase. Would you personally be interested in creating desserts for the event? We could work around your schedule. And I'm authorized to offer very competitive compensation. Julian squeezed my hand under the table. Elizabeth's work is exceptional. You'd be lucky to have her. I'd need to talk to my boss and confirm it won't conflict with bakery commitments, but yes, I'd be interested in discussing it. Patricia's smile warmed. Excellent. I'll have my assistant reach out to you next week with details. And Julian, excellent choice in girlfriend. She's delightful. Afterward, Julian drove me home. I was quiet, trying to absorb it. In front of my building, he parked and turned to me. That was quite an evening, he said. Did you plan that? The dessert critique? Patricia's offer? I didn't plan anything. I told Patricia we were having dinner with her, and I mentioned you were a pastry chef. The rest was her genuine interest in your talent. But you suspected she might offer something. I hoped she'd notice what I notice, that you're extraordinarily good and deserve a stage. Is that so wrong? I searched his face in the dim streetlight. I can't tell if you're honestly trying to help me, or if this is all part of some elaborate revenge plot. Can it be both? I care about you, Elizabeth. That's real. But I also think the people who've dismissed you should be forced to reckon with your worth, not through sabotage or cruelty, just through reality, through them having to acknowledge your talent and value, because it affects things they care about. This is complicated. The best things usually are. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. For what it's worth, I'm falling for you. That complicates things too, but I'm not sorry about it. My breath snagged. Julian, you don't have to say anything, and I just wanted you to know where I stand. Now go inside before I do something impulsive like kiss you senseless in front of your building. I stepped out, then leaned back in the window. I'm falling for you too, just so you know. His grin could have lit the block. Good. That makes what comes next easier. What comes next? Patience. You'll see. The following week, Patricia's assistant called with specifics for the corporate party. Mid-August, marking Bennett Health Solutions' sustainability transition. They wanted an elaborate dessert spread for 200, at triple my usual rate. My boss was thrilled, money and exposure. And we arranged for me to use the bakery during off hours, with the bakery credited while I received most of the fee. Over the next weeks, Julian and I fell into a rhythm. Dinners, movies, long talks deep into the night. He made me laugh and pushed me to reconsider things. The chemistry was unmistakable, but the surprise was how easy it felt just being with him. We mostly avoided the topic of Victoria and my family. It was like we'd built a bubble where I could exist without that weight. 6 weeks after the wedding, Victoria called. Elizabeth, hi. Sorry I haven't been in touch since the honeymoon. Things have been crazy with settling into married life. No worries. How was the trip? Incredible. The Maldives were everything we hoped for. Listen, I wanted to see if you were free for lunch this Saturday. I feel like we haven't really talked in forever, and I want to catch up properly. I almost declined by reflex, then remembered Julian's words about visibility and respect. Sure, I can do lunch. Where did you have in mind? We met at a chic bistro near her new house, exactly her terrain. Tanned and serene, she looked like an advertisement for newlywed bliss. We ordered salads and traded small talk about the trip, her neighborhood, Gregory's job. So, she said at last, tell me about Julian. You two seemed quite close at the wedding, but you never mentioned you were seeing anyone. It's relatively new. We met a few months ago through work connections. He seems very successful. Gregory's colleagues were all impressed by him. Apparently, his company is handling a massive project for Bennett Health. There it was, the point of this lunch. Not sisterly catching up, but information gathering about a man important to her husband's career. Julian's very good at what he does, I said evenly. I'm just surprised you never mentioned him before. I mean, I told you all about Gregory when we started dating. Had she? I recalled stiff calls where she hinted at a boyfriend without details, but saying so would only ignite a fight, and I wanted to see where she was going. I tend to keep my personal life private. Well, I'm glad you're happy, and I heard you're doing the desserts for the Bennett Health event in August. That's wonderful. Gregory mentioned Patricia was very impressed with you. It's a good opportunity. Victoria nudged her salad, not eating. Listen, I wanted to apologize if things felt weird at the wedding. I know the seating arrangement wasn't ideal, and I feel bad that we didn't get much time to talk. The seating arrangement put me behind, a pillar. Victoria, it wasn't just not ideal, it was humiliating. Color rose in her cheeks. That was the wedding planner's mistake. She didn't understand family dynamics. And by the time I saw the setup, it was too late to change things without causing chaos. You could have mentioned having a sister to Gregory's colleagues, to anyone, but you didn't. That's not fair. Of course, people know I have a sister. Patricia didn't. She was surprised at the wedding when Julian mentioned it. She said you'd never brought it up during all your planning meetings. Victoria flushed deeper. I don't talk about my personal life at work. That doesn't mean I'm hiding you. Doesn't it, though? When was the last time you invited me to anything? When did you last call just to chat? Not because you needed something or had an obligation. Elizabeth, you're being dramatic. We're sisters. Of course we have a relationship, do we? Because from here, it feels like biology and not much else. You treat me like an afterthought, someone included out of duty, better forgotten. Her composure thinned. Is that really what you think? That I don't care about you? I think you care like you care about distant cousins. They show up at milestones, but aren't part of your life. I've accepted that. What I won't accept is the pretense. Don't invite me to lunch and act close when we both know we're not. Fine. You want honesty? I'll give you honesty. You made choices that embarrassed our mother. You chose a career path that she couldn't brag about to her friends. You refused to conform to the expectations we grew up with. And yes, that created distance between us. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but it's the truth. Her words confirmed what I'd always suspected, but hadn't heard aloud. I wasn't a failure. I just refused to play their game. Thank you for finally being honest, I said quietly. But here's some honesty back. I'm not embarrassed by my choices. I love what I do and I'm good at it. If that's not enough for you or mother, that's your problem, not mine. And I'm done apologizing for being myself. I stood, left enough cash to cover my part, and pushed in my chair. Thanks for lunch, Victoria, and congratulations again on your marriage. I hope it brings you everything you're looking for. I walked out with my hands shaking. Brutal, but necessary. Something inside locked into place, a refusal to keep accepting crumbs from people who thought I was lesser. That evening, Julian called. I told him about the lunch, her admission, and how I finally said what needed saying. I'm proud of you, he said. That took courage. It felt good. Terrifying, but good. Like I finally said things that needed saying. Are you ready for the next step? What next step? The Bennett Health event is in 3 weeks. I want you there as my date, not just as the pastry chef. I want you visible and acknowledged and impossible to dismiss. Are you ready for that? I pictured Victoria at lunch, my mother's comments at the wedding, all the years of being small in their eyes. Yes, I'm ready. The 3 weeks vanished in prep. I obsessed over the menu. Elegant individual portions that tasted as good as they looked. Chocolate raspberry tarts with gold leaf, lemon panna cotta with edible flowers, miniature opera cakes with razor-straight layers, honey lavender macarons that melted on the tongue. Every piece was a tiny proof. Julian helped with tastings and honest notes. Somewhere in the middle of the rush, our relationship settled into something steadier. I was in love with him, though I hadn't said the words. I suspected he felt the same. The night arrived at a sleek downtown venue of glass and clean lines. I spent the afternoon staging the display under flattering lights. Then I changed into an emerald dress Julian had insisted on buying. He said I should look as striking as my desserts. Soft waves, polished makeup. The look on his face made every minute worth it. You're breathtaking, he said simply. You clean up pretty well yourself. The room was already humming when we stepped in. Roughly 200 guests. Pharma executives, city officials, business leaders. Across the way, I spotted Gregory and Victoria, surrounded by colleagues. My mother had come too, elegant in champagne silk. Patricia found us first. Elizabeth, the desserts are stunning. Everyone is already talking about them. You've outdone yourself, thank you. I'm glad they meet expectations. Meet them? You've exceeded them by miles. Come, I want to introduce you to some people. The next hour felt unreal. She moved me from group to group, presenting me as the chef behind the spread. Compliments, questions about training, requests for cards. I was seen for the work itself, not dismissed for my choices. Julian stayed close, supportive and intentional. He mentioned our relationship to almost everyone, framing me as his partner as well as the creator of the desserts. In a room that evaluated connections, being his girlfriend mattered. From across the space, I watched Victoria spot us. Confusion gave way to recognition, then something like discomfort. She spoke to Gregory. Both turned our way. "They've spotted us," Julian murmured at my ear. "Ready? For what?" "To remind them you exist." Before I could answer, Gregory arrived with Victoria beside him. Up close. He looked strained. His smile didn't quite hold. "Julian, Elizabeth, good to see you both." "Elizabeth, I've heard nothing but praise for your desserts. Very impressive work." "Thank you. I'm pleased they've been well received." Victoria stood half a step behind him, her face carefully composed. "Hi, Elizabeth. Everything looks beautiful." "Thank you, Victoria." Silence settled, taut. Gregory broke it. "Julian, I was hoping we could discuss the final phase of the sustainability project. There are some budget considerations we need to address." "Of course." "Elizabeth, would you excuse me for a few minutes?" I nodded, and they stepped away, leaving me with Victoria. The air between us was full of unsaids. "You've been busy," she said at last. "Landing major catering jobs, dating important consultants. Quite a change from the last time we talked. I've always been busy." "You just never noticed. That's not fair, isn't it? You spent years treating my work as trivial. Now that it benefits your husband's world, suddenly it counts." Her composure slipped. "What do you want from me, Elizabeth? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry I didn't appreciate your career choices. I'm sorry the wedding seating was bad. I'm sorry we're not closer. Is that what you need to hear? I don't need anything from you anymore. That's the part you're missing. I'm not the little sister pleading for approval. I've made a life I'm proud of, with people who value the actual me." "People like Julian, you mean?" "Gregory says he's very influential in his field. Very useful to know." The barb landed even though I expected it. "You think I'm using him? Or he's using me? That's the only lens you have. A transaction. I'm just saying it's convenient. You show up at my wedding alone and invisible, and now suddenly you're dating someone Gregory's company depends on, and getting hired for major events. It's quite a transformation." I didn't get a chance to answer before Julian returned with Gregory. Both looked tight, and I wondered what had passed between them. "Victoria, we should mingle with the other guests," Gregory said, leaving no room for debate. "There are several board members here we need to speak with." She gave me one last unreadable look and let him lead her away. I let out a breath. "That looked intense," Julian said quietly. "Are you okay?" "She thinks I'm using you for status, or that you're using me to sway Gregory's decisions. She can't imagine we just care about each other. Does her opinion matter to you?" I waited honestly. "Less than it would have months ago. I'm finished needing her approval." "Good, because you're about to get something better than approval." "What do you mean?" Julian smiled, that calculating expression I'd seen before. "Watch." Patricia stepped up to the mic positioned near the pastry display, and the chatter faded as she began, by praising the sustainability milestone and acknowledging Julian's team for their strong performance. Then she shifted to the evening itself. "I also want to recognize someone who made tonight extra special. Elizabeth, could you join me up here?" My pulse pounded as I moved forward through the crowd. Patricia greeted me with a warm smile and continued. "Elizabeth created every single dessert you've enjoyed tonight. Her artistry and skill transformed our celebration into something truly memorable. But more than that, she represents exactly the kind of innovation and dedication we're trying to foster at Bennett Health Solutions, which is why I'm pleased to announce that we'll be partnering with her for all of our major events going forward. Elizabeth, thank you for your incredible work." Applause crashed over me. Stunned, I accepted an envelope from Patricia, the contract for what she'd just announced. When I found Julian in the audience, his proud grin told me he had set the stage flawlessly. Then I located Victoria. She stood with Gregory, clapping along with everyone else, but her face was layered. Surprise foremost, discomfort beneath, and perhaps the first glimmer of respect. Both of our mothers hovered beside them, equally taken aback. For once, in a room that included my family, I was the one everyone was looking at, and it was because of my own craft, my work, my value, not a polished marriage or a textbook resume, but the excellence that comes from doing what I love. As the applause ebbed, I returned to Julian. He drew me in and kissed my temple. "How does it feel?" he whispered. "Like vindication, like finally being seen. You were always worth seeing. They were just too blind to notice." The night went on, but the balance had changed. People approached me by name. not as Julian's date or Victoria's sibling, but as Elizabeth, the pastry chef with momentum. Eventually, my mother arrived, her smile tight but present. "Congratulations, dear." That was quite an announcement. "Thank you, Mother. I suppose your career choice has worked out after all." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't years of dismissal undone. Yet it was something, a reluctant concession that maybe I'd known my path all along. Everything accelerated in the months after. The Bennett Health partnership opened doors. More prominent engagements followed, each one putting my desserts and my reputation center stage. Julian and I moved in together, our relationship settling into something steady and genuine. We talked seriously about the road ahead, marriage, children, a life that held both our ambitions. With Victoria, a wary truce formed. We weren't close, maybe we never would be, but respect existed now. She learned that cutting me down carried outcomes, that I had worth beyond her narrow scorecard. We stayed formal but friendly. Family events no longer felt like rituals in invisibility. My mother had a harder time recalibrating. Her identity had been built around Victoria's triumphs, and acknowledging mine unbalanced her carefully arranged order. But even she couldn't ignore what was plain: the credibility I'd earned, the independent life I'd built. As for Victoria and Gregory, the ripple effects of how she treated me became unmistakable. Gregory's continued dependence on Julian's firm meant Victoria no longer could sideline me without risking his professional ties. She had boxed herself into polite inclusion, family invites, public acknowledgement, because anything less might strain relationships important to Gregory's work. Pharma is smaller than it seems, and word spreads quickly about how executives' families behave. The image Victoria guarded so fiercely now required her to show up as a supportive sister. The irony was impossible to miss. For years, she erased me. Now she had to spotlight me. She had to praise my work to her husband's peers. She had to act like closeness had always existed. Each holiday became theater. No slips allowed, no room for her old disdain. Her immaculate life now needed me present, and that necessity would last as long as Gregory relied on Julian's company. She had built her own confines, a permanent reminder that the sister she minimized was a person she could no longer afford to overlook. When I think back to that wedding, hidden behind a pillar, feeling unseen and small, I barely recognize the woman I was. Julian gave me more than cover at an excruciating event. He held up a mirror to my real value. He offered a partnership that lifted rather than diminished, and a way to insist on the respect I'd always merited. If this was revenge, it wasn't about wreckage. It was the clean proof that I mattered. Not because of a husband or a comparison to Victoria, but because of who I am and what I create. And standing now in the kitchen of the bakery I co-own, turning flour and sugar into art with practiced hands, I understood that the most satisfying revenge was becoming the person I was meant to be and making them all witness it.